Alpha Queen approached the silent valley, until the lunar wolf dog warned her too late. I should have listened to Magnus. That's what I think now, lying here in the darkness with dirt pressing down on the coffin lid 6 feet above my head, my fingernails broken and bleeding from clawing at wood that won't break. But 3 nights ago, when that massive lunar wolf dog was scratching at my bedroom door for the 3rd time in a row, his silver-white fur bristling, and those ancient amber eyes fixed on me with something that looked like desperation, I thought he was just being overprotective. I thought he was nervous about the wedding. I thought he was guarding me from some external threat I couldn't see. I never imagined the real danger was already inside the castle, wearing my sister's face. Let me start at the beginning, because that's where all tragedies really start, isn't it? 3 months before my wedding. 3 months before I died. Or rather, 3 months before my sister made me appear dead, so she could bury me alive and steal everything I had. The kingdom was burning. I stood on the eastern tower of the castle, watching smoke rise from villages 5 miles away, black plumes against a sky that should have been clear and blue. The northern raiders had been pushing south for weeks, leaving nothing but ash and corpses in their wake. Our army was losing. My father, King Theron, spent every council meeting with his head in his hands, while his generals argued and pointed at maps and accomplished nothing. I watched our realm crumble and felt utterly powerless. I was the crown princess, the heir, but in times of war, what good is a woman who's been trained in diplomacy and court politics instead of sword fighting? That's when Damien Blackfire appeared. I'll never forget the first time I saw him. Luna and I were walking through the lower city, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, trying to show our people we weren't hiding in the castle while they suffered. The gladiator arena was holding fights to raise morale, or maybe to distract everyone from the fact that we were all probably going to die. Luna wanted to go. She loved the spectacle, the violence, the way the crowd roared. I hated it, but I went because she begged. And back then, I still thought my little sister actually loved me. The arena stank of sweat and blood and beer. The wooden seats were packed with people screaming for death. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, trying not to look at the sand below where 2 men were trying to kill each other for entertainment. Then the gates opened, and he walked out. Damien Blackfire. That's what they called him, though later I'd learn it wasn't his real name. Just something the arena masters gave him because of the way he fought, like living fire that consumed everything in its path. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his body covered in scars that told stories of 100 battles. Dark hair fell to his shoulders. His eyes were the color of smoke. He moved like water, like violence contained in flesh. And the moment I saw him, something inside my chest pulled. It wasn't attraction. Well, it was, but it was more than that. It was deeper, older, something primal that came from the wolf spirit that lives in all of us. The legacy of the moon goddess who blessed our bloodline centuries ago. The mate bond. That invisible thread that connects souls meant to be together, woven by the goddess herself in patterns we can't control or predict. I gasped. Actually gasped like some swooning maiden in a romance story, my hand flying to my chest where I could feel something golden and warm unfurling behind my ribs. Luna turned to look at me, her perfectly arched eyebrows raised. "Are you all right?" she asked, and there was something in her voice I didn't recognize then. Something sharp. "I'm fine," I lied, but I couldn't take my eyes off the gladiator below. He fought like a storm given human form. His opponent didn't stand a chance. Within minutes it was over, and Damien stood in the center of the arena with blood on his knuckles and the crowd chanting his name. His eyes scanned the stands. Then they found me. The world stopped. He inhaled deeply. Even from 50 feet away I saw his chest expand, scenting. The ancient ritual where shifters recognize their mates through smell alone. That unique fragrance that's different for everyone. Mine apparently smelled like night-blooming jasmine and steel. His smelled like smoke and pine and something darker, something that made my wolf want to roll over and show her throat. The mate bond snapped into place so hard I almost fell off my seat. Luna grabbed my arm. "Arya, what's wrong with you?" Now her voice was definitely sharp, almost angry. I should have paid attention to that. Should have wondered why my sister sounded furious instead of concerned. "Nothing," I whispered, but my whole body was shaking. Below, Damien was still staring at me. His lips moved. I couldn't hear him over the roar of the crowd, but I could read his lips. Mine. That was the beginning. The real beginning. Before the betrayal and the grave and the darkness. When I still thought fairy tales could come true. Damien won his freedom from the arena that day. Then he did something unprecedented. He requested an audience with the king. He offered to save the kingdom from the northern raiders in exchange for one prize, the right to marry one of the king's daughters. My father was desperate enough to accept. For 3 weeks, Damien led our armies. He was brilliant, ruthless, strategic in ways our pampered generals couldn't match. He trained our soldiers properly. He led counteroffensives. He went into battle himself, returning each time covered in blood that was never his own. The tide turned. The raiders retreated. The kingdom was saved. I barely saw him during those 3 weeks. He was always at the front lines while I was stuck in the castle fulfilling my duties as crown princess. But I felt him. The mate bond stretched between us like a golden thread, humming with his emotions, his determination, his fury, his pain when soldiers under his command died. I lay in bed at night with my hand pressed to my heart, feeling him out there in the dark, fighting for a kingdom that wasn't even his yet. Luna noticed. Of course she noticed. She'd watch me with those calculating green eyes, so different from my own blue ones. She'd ask me if I was thinking about the gladiator, her voice dripping with something I still didn't recognize as venom. I thought she was teasing me. I thought she was being a younger sister, playful and annoying in the way younger sisters are. I was so stupid. When the war ended, my father held a celebration feast. The entire court packed into the great hall, nobles in their finest silks, servants pouring wine like water. My father stood at the head of the table and raised his goblet. "Damien Blackfire," he said, his voice carrying through the suddenly silent hall. "You saved this kingdom. Ask for your reward." Damien stood. He hadn't bothered to dress like a noble. He wore simple leather and linen, his hair still damp from bathing. But he commanded the room like he was born to it. His eyes found mine across the crowded hall. The mate bond thrummed. "I want to marry one of your daughters," he said simply. "I want to be king." The hall erupted. Nobles shouted in outrage. "How dare this commoner, this gladiator, this nobody demand a princess?" My mother actually clutched her pearls. Luna sat perfectly still, her face a mask of polite interest, but under the table, her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. My father held up his hand for silence. "You have earned the right to ask," he said slowly, "but the choice is yours. I have 2 daughters, Arya, my heir, 28 years old, and Luna, 24. Choose which you would have as your bride." I couldn't breathe. The mate bond was singing in my chest, pulling me toward him with a force that made my bones ache. But he didn't know me. Not really. We'd barely spoken. What if he chose Luna? She was beautiful, charming, beloved by everyone. I was the serious one, the responsible one, the one who spent her days in council meetings instead of charming courtiers. Damien walked forward slowly. His boots echoed on the marble floor. The hall was so silent I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. He passed the nobles, ignoring their whispers. He approached the high table where Luna and I sat on either side of our parents. He stopped in front of Luna first. She smiled at him, that dazzling smile that made men fall at her feet. She tilted her head just so, showing the elegant line of her throat. "Warrior," she said softly, "you honor us." Damien looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked past her. I saw Luna's smile freeze on her face, saw something flash in her eyes, there and gone too quick to name. Damien stopped in front of me. I couldn't make myself look up at him. I stared at my hands folded on the table, my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone must hear it. Then his hand appeared in my vision, rough and scarred, palm up, an offering. "You," he said, his voice low and rough. "You are my mate. You will be my queen." I looked up into smoke-gray eyes. The mate bond exploded between us, golden and warm and so powerful it stole my breath. I could smell him now, pine and smoke and something uniquely him that made every cell in my body wake up and pay attention. "Home," my wolf whispered. "Mate, mine." I put my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and solid, real. The hall erupted again, but this time in celebration. Music started playing. Nobles rushed forward to congratulate us. Wine flowed. Magnus Nightshade, the ancient lunar wolf dog who'd guarded our family for 3 generations, threw back his head and howled, the sound echoing off the stone walls. "The moon goddess recognizes this bond," that howl said. "She blesses it." I was floating. Damien kept my hand in his thumb stroking across my knuckles. We were swept into the celebration, separated and reunited a dozen times. Every time I found him again through the crowd, the mate bond would flare, warm and golden and right. But through it all, I felt eyes on my back. I turned once and saw Luna standing alone near the windows. Everyone else was celebrating, but she stood there in a pool of shadow, watching me, watching us, and the expression on her face made my blood run cold. It wasn't disappointment. It wasn't even jealousy. It was hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred that twisted her beautiful features into something ugly and terrible. I blinked, and the expression was gone. She smiled and raised her goblet to me. But I'd seen it, that flash of something dark and rotten that lived beneath her lovely face. I should have said something then. Should have told Damien, told my parents, told someone. But what would I say? My sister looked at me wrong? She seemed upset that the gladiator chose me instead of her. It sounded paranoid. Luna had always been dramatic, emotional. She'd be hurt for a few days, and then she'd get over it. That's what I told myself. That night, Luna disappeared from her rooms. The servants said she'd gone for a walk to clear her head. No one thought anything of it. Luna often went for walks when she was upset. She came back 3 days later. She seemed fine. Quiet, maybe. Subdued. But she helped plan the wedding. She smiled when she was supposed to smile. She congratulated me. She even helped me choose my wedding dress. I thought everything was okay. I was wrong. 3 months passed in a blur of wedding preparations and council meetings and stolen moments with Damien. The mate bond grew stronger every day, that golden thread weaving tighter between us. He was everything I'd never dared dream of. Strong but gentle, fierce but kind. He listened when I talked about policy. He asked my opinion on military matters. He treated me like an equal, not like a prize he'd won. "You're sure about this?" I asked him one night when we were alone in the castle gardens, the moon fat and silver overhead. "You could have had anyone. Luna, a foreign princess, a noble from a powerful family. Why me?" He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones. "You ask me why the sun rises? Why the moon pulls the tides? The goddess chose you for me before either of us was born. This isn't a choice, Arya. This is destiny." I kissed him then, tasting smoke and wine and certainty. The mate bond sang. A week before the wedding, Magnus started acting strange. He'd always been protective of me, but now he became obsessive. He followed me everywhere, his massive white body shadowing my every step. He'd position himself between me and Luna whenever she came near. He growled at her once, low and threatening, his hackles raised. I scolded him. "Magnus, that's my sister. You've known her since she was born. What's gotten into you?" He whined and pressed his nose against my hand, those amber eyes pleading with me to understand something he couldn't say with words. Then the scratching started. The first night, I woke to the sound of claws on wood. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Insistent, desperate. Magnus was at my door, trying to get in. I opened it, and he burst into my room, circling my bed 3 times before lying down directly in front of the door, blocking it with his body. "You're being ridiculous," I told him, climbing back into bed. "There's nothing to guard me from. We're safe. The war is over." He just stared at me with those ancient, knowing eyes. The second night, the scratching was more frantic. I could hear him whining between the scratches, an almost human sound of distress. This time, when I let him in, he grabbed the hem of my nightgown in his teeth and pulled, trying to drag me somewhere. "Magnus, stop!" I yanked my nightgown free. "What is wrong with you?" He howled then, a long, mournful sound that raised the hair on my arms. Guards came running. My father came. We all stood in the hallway in our nightclothes, while Magnus paced and whined and acted like the world was ending. "He's anxious about all the changes," my father said finally. "First the war, now the wedding. It's disrupting his routine." That made sense. That's what I told myself. The third night, 3 nights before my wedding, Magnus didn't just scratch. He threw his whole body against my door, over and over, the sound like thunder. I could hear him snarling, barking, a sound I'd never heard him make before. When I opened the door, he lunged past me into my room and went straight to the tea service Luna had brought me earlier. He knocked the tray off my bedside table, the teacup shattering, liquid spreading across the floor. "Magnus, no!" I grabbed his collar, trying to pull him away from the mess. He twisted in my grip and looked at me, and I swear to the goddess there were tears in his eyes. Not metaphorical tears. Actual tears running down his furry face. He was trying to warn me. He'd smelled whatever Luna had put in that tea. the poison or curse or spell that she'd gotten from the witch in the forbidden forest. He'd smelled the dark magic clinging to my sister's hands, the scent of graveyard dirt and bitter herbs and death. He'd known I was in danger, and he'd been trying desperately to tell me in the only way he could. But I didn't understand. I cleaned up the spilled tea and broken china. I made Magnus leave. I locked my door and went to bed, annoyed at his behavior, planning to talk to the kennel master in the morning about giving him something to calm his nerves. I should have listened to Magnus. That's what I think now, in the darkness, with my air running out and my fingers bloody from clawing at the coffin lid. Because the next morning, Luna brought me fresh tea, smiled her beautiful smile, sat with me while I drank it, and in that tea was my death, or what everyone thought was my death. In reality, it was so much worse. The pre-wedding rituals began 3 days before I was supposed to become Damien's wife, 3 days before Luna killed me, or tried to. I'm still not sure which is worse, what she intended or what actually happened. The traditions were ancient, handed down through generations of our bloodline. The bride must purify herself in sacred springs. She must fast for 24 hours to empty her body of earthly concerns. She must meditate with the moon priestesses in the temple, opening herself to the goddess's blessings. Every queen before me had done it. My mother, my grandmother, every woman who'd worn the crown. Luna insisted on helping me through it all. "I want to be there for you," she said the morning it began, taking my hands in hers. Her fingers were cold. I remember that now. Cold like winter water, like touching something that's been left in the dark too long. "You're my sister, my only sister. Let me do this for you." I was touched, genuinely touched. After months of watching her be quiet and withdrawn, I thought she'd finally made peace with Damien's choice. I thought we were okay again, the way we'd been as children before jealousy poisoned everything between us. So I smiled and hugged her and said yes, of course she could help me. Magnus lost his mind. I was in my chambers preparing for the first purification bath when Luna arrived with my ceremonial robes. Magnus was lying by the fireplace, but the moment Luna crossed the threshold, he surged to his feet. The growl that came from his throat raised every hair on my body. It was primal, territorial, the sound a wolf makes when facing a threat to its pack. "Magnus, stop it!" I snapped, moving between him and Luna. "What is wrong with you?" He didn't stop. He bared his teeth, his lips pulling back to show fangs that could tear through bone. His hackles stood straight up, making him look twice his already massive size. Those amber eyes were fixed on Luna with an intensity that bordered on madness. Luna stepped back, her hand at her throat. "Arya, I don't know what I did to upset him. I'm sorry, I'll go." "No." I grabbed Magnus by his silver collar, the one marked with moon runes that proclaimed him a sacred guardian. "You're staying. Magnus needs to learn some manners." I dragged him out of the room. He fought me every step, his claws scrabbling on the stone floor, whining in a way that sounded almost like words. "Please," that whine seemed to say. "Please listen to me. Please understand." But I didn't understand. I locked him in the kennel and went back to Luna, apologizing, promising he'd be punished for his behavior. She smiled and said it was fine. Animals could be unpredictable. Then she helped me undress for the bath, her fingers cool and efficient on the laces of my gown. The purification springs were beneath the castle, natural hot pools that smelled of minerals and sacred herbs. Luna walked with me through the steam-filled chambers, carrying my robes. The priestesses were already there, ancient women in white who'd devoted their lives to the moon goddess. They blessed me with silver water and chanted prayers in the old language. I sank into the hot spring up to my neck, feeling the heat seep into my muscles, my bones. Luna sat at the edge of the pool. She didn't join me, just watched with those green eyes that seemed darker than usual. Or maybe it was just the steam, the shadows, my imagination. "Are you happy?" she asked suddenly. I turned to look at her through the mist. "Of course I am. Why would you ask that? Because sometimes I wonder if you truly want this, or if you're just doing what's expected of you. You've always been so dutiful, Arya. Always doing what Father wants, what the kingdom needs. But what do you want?" There was something in her voice that made me pause, something that sounded almost like concern. "I want Damien," I said softly. "The mate bond isn't something I chose, but I'm grateful for it. He's everything I never knew I needed." Luna was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm glad. You deserve happiness." The priestesses finished their prayers. I climbed out of the pool, and Luna wrapped me in soft towels, her hands gentle on my shoulders. That's when I noticed it for the first time. She looked different, older somehow. There were fine lines around her eyes that I didn't remember seeing before, a certain tightness to her skin, a hollowness in her cheeks. "Luna, are you feeling all right? You look tired." She flinched, almost imperceptibly. "I'm fine, just haven't been sleeping well. You should rest. You don't need to attend every ritual with me." "I want to." Her grip on my shoulders tightened. "Just for a second. I want to be here for you, for every moment." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl, but I pushed the feeling away. She was my sister, my family. I was being paranoid. The next ritual was the fasting. 24 hours without food, only sacred tea and spring water. Luna brought me the tea herself every few hours, carrying it on a silver tray like she was my personal servant instead of a princess. The tea was made from moonflower and blessed herbs, supposed to clear the mind and open the spirit. It tasted bitter and sweet at the same time, coating my tongue with a thickness that never quite went away. Magnus tried to stop her every time. The first time she brought tea, he appeared out of nowhere and knocked the tray from her hands with his massive head. The teapot shattered on the floor, hot liquid spreading across the stone. Luna cried out, jumping back. I was furious. "Magnus, enough!" I grabbed him by the scruff, shaking him. "This is unacceptable. You're acting like a rabid animal." He whined and tried to lick my face, his whole body trembling. Then he looked at Luna, and the growl started again, low and threatening. Luna backed toward the door. Maybe I should go. Maybe he's picking up on some scent that bothers him. Some herb in the tea. "It's sacred tea that every royal bride has drunk for 300 years, I said through gritted teeth. "There's nothing wrong with it. Magnus is just being impossible." Luna made more tea. Magnus tried to stop her again, and again, and again. The third time, he grabbed the hem of my ceremonial robe in his teeth when Luna approached, and pulled hard enough to tear the fabric. I slapped him. Actually slapped him across his muzzle, something I'd never done before. He yelped, and looked at me with such betrayal in his eyes that guilt stabbed through my anger. "I'm sorry," I whispered, dropping to my knees and hugging him. "I'm sorry, but you have to stop this. Luna is my sister. She's trying to help me." He pressed his nose against my neck, right where Damien would eventually bite me to complete our mate bond. His breath was hot against my skin. Then he pulled back and howled, a sound so loud and mournful that the windows rattled in their frames. Guards came running. My father appeared, half-dressed, sword in hand, thinking we were under attack. We all stood there while Magnus howled and howled like his heart was breaking. "Put him in the royal kennels," my father ordered finally. "He can't be around Arya until after the wedding. He's too agitated." "No, please," I started. But Magnus had already been dragged away by 3 guards, still howling, his claws leaving gouges in the stone floor. I didn't see him again for 2 days, not until it was too late. Luna stayed by my side through the entire fasting period. She brushed my hair, the bristles scraping against my scalp in rhythmic strokes that were almost hypnotic. She helped me dress in the simple white shift I was supposed to wear during meditation. She read to me from sacred texts while I lay in bed, trying to ignore the hunger gnawing at my stomach. And I started noticing things I couldn't explain away. She smelled wrong. I'd never noticed Luna's scent before. She was just my sister, but now there was something underneath her usual rose perfume. Something dark and organic, like turned earth and rotting leaves. Like the smell that clings to you after walking through a graveyard. "What perfume is that?" I asked once, wrinkling my nose. She looked up from the book she was reading, startled. "What perfume?" "That smell. It's different from what you usually wear." "I'm not wearing perfume. The rituals forbid it, remember? We're supposed to be pure." But I could smell it, sharp and bitter and wrong. Her appearance kept bothering me too. Every time I looked at her, she seemed older. Not dramatically, not in a way I could point to and say, "Look, you've aged." Just subtle differences. The skin on her hands was looser. There were faint wrinkles at the corners of her mouth. Her hair seemed duller, threaded with strands that might have been gray or might have been the light. "Luna, are you sure you're feeling all right?" I asked the night before my wedding. "You look exhausted." She set down her teacup with a sharp click. "I'm fine, Arya. Stop asking me that. I'm worried about you." "Well, don't be." Her voice was harsh, angry even. Then she seemed to catch herself, and her expression softened. "I'm sorry. I'm just tired. It's been a long few months, watching you prepare for your wedding, dealing with everything. I'll feel better after the ceremony." She hugged me then, pulling me close, and that's when I felt it. The cold. It slid through my chest like an icicle being driven between my ribs. There and gone so fast I gasped. Luna pulled back, her eyes searching my face. What's wrong? I don't know. Just a weird feeling, like something cold touched my heart. Pre-wedding nerves, she said, smiling. But her smile was tight, forced. Everyone gets them. The meditation with the moon priestesses was supposed to be the final ritual. I spent 6 hours in the temple, sitting on cold stone while the ancient women chanted and burned sacred herbs. The smoke made me lightheaded, my empty stomach cramped. But I felt the goddess's presence, or thought I did, a warm golden light that seemed to fill the temple, wrapping around me like a blessing. When I emerged, Luna was waiting outside with my regular clothes. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Sacred," I said. And I meant it, like the goddess has chosen me. She has. Luna helped me dress, her fingers cold through the thin fabric. "She's given you everything. The mate bond, the crown, Damien, everything." There was something in her voice that made me look at her sharply. "Luna, we should get you back to the castle," she interrupted. "The farewell dinner starts in an hour." The farewell dinner, a tradition where the bride shared one last private meal with her family before she left her father's house to join her mates. Intimate, small, just my parents, Luna, Damien, and me. I should have refused to go, should have felt the trap closing around me. But I was tired from fasting and dizzy from meditation, and so stupid. The private dining room was warm and golden, lit by dozens of candles. The table was set with our finest dishes. My mother wore her emeralds. My father had on his formal doublet. Damien looked devastating in black velvet, his dark hair tied back, those smoke-gray eyes finding mine the moment I entered. The mate bond pulsed between us, warm and strong, and right. 3 more hours, he said, taking my hand and kissing it. "Then you're mine forever." "I'm already yours," I whispered back. Luna served the wine herself. She insisted on it, saying it was tradition for the bride's sister to pour the farewell toast. She moved around the table with a crystal decanter, filling each goblet with deep red wine that looked almost black in the candlelight. She stopped in front of me last, poured my goblet full, smiled. "A toast," she said, raising her own glass. "To my dearest sister, may the goddess bless your marriage. May your mate bond never break. May you have everything you've always deserved." Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine. The wine smelled like roses and honey in summer evenings. I brought it to my lips. I drank. It tasted perfect, sweet and rich, coating my throat like velvet. I drank again, deeper this time, savoring the taste after 24 hours of nothing but bitter tea. Then I tasted something else, something underneath the sweetness, something that tasted like copper and ash and rot. I set down my goblet. "Luna, is this wine off? It tastes strange." "It's from Father's private reserve," she said smoothly. "The finest vintage we have." Damien was already drinking his. So were my parents. They didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe my empty stomach and the herbs from the temple were making me taste things that weren't there. 5 minutes later, my heart started to slow. It wasn't subtle. One moment it was beating normally. The next it was dragging, each beat taking longer than the last. Thump, pause, thump, pause, like it was forgetting how to function. "I don't feel well," I said, and my voice sounded distant, muffled, like I was speaking underwater. Damien turned to me, his face creasing with concern. "Arya, what's wrong?" "My heart." I pressed my hand to my chest. "Something's wrong with my heart." Then my lungs stopped working right. Each breath was a struggle, like trying to drag air through mud. My hands were getting cold, the cold spreading up my arms, through my torso. The room tilted. I tried to stand, tried to call for help, but my legs wouldn't hold me. I fell. Damien caught me before I hit the floor. I felt his arms around me, strong and solid, and I tried to hold on to him, but my fingers wouldn't close. The mate bond was screaming, both of us feeling it tear as death pulled me away from him. "Arya!" His voice was breaking. "Someone get a healer! Now!" My vision was darkening around the edges. I could see faces hovering over me. My father, pale and terrified. My mother, sobbing. Damien, his eyes wild, his hands on my face, on my throat, trying to find a pulse that was barely there. And Luna. Luna kneeling beside me with the strangest expression on her face. Not horror, not grief, something else. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. She leaned close, so close that only I could hear her whisper. Everything was always yours, Arya. The love, the attention, the crown, the mate. Now it's all going to be mine. I tried to speak, tried to scream, tried to tell them it was her. She did this. She poisoned me. But my throat was paralyzed. My tongue wouldn't move. My vocal cords were frozen. I could only lie there, feeling my body shut down piece by piece while Luna smiled down at me. "Don't worry," she whispered. "You won't die right away. The witch promised me that. You'll seem dead. They'll bury you. And then, in a few hours, you'll wake up. You'll wake up in your coffin, 6 feet underground, and you'll realize what I've done. You'll suffocate slowly in the dark, knowing I took everything from you, knowing I won. Horror crashed through me, worse than the poison, worse than the dying. She was going to bury me alive. I was going to wake up in a grave. My vision went black, but I could still hear. Gods help me. I could still hear everything. Damien was screaming my name, the mate bond shredding as he felt me slip away. Someone was checking my pulse, saying they couldn't find one. My mother was wailing. My father was shouting for the royal physician. And through it all, distantly, I heard Magnus howling, that ancient heartbroken sound of a wolf who knows his pack member is dying. The physician arrived. I felt hands on my body, checking for breath, for heartbeat, for any sign of life. But the spell was perfect. I seemed completely dead. My heart had stopped. My lungs were still. My skin was already growing cold. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty," the physician said, and I heard the tears in his voice. "The princess is gone." Damien's howl joined Magnus's, the sound of the mate bond breaking, of a part of his soul being ripped away. He collapsed, and I heard him retching, his body trying to expel the agony that was consuming him from inside. They took me away. I felt them lift my body, felt the strange sensation of being carried while being unable to move or respond. They laid me on something soft. My bed, I thought. They'd brought me back to my chambers. Luna was there. I smelled that graveyard scent growing stronger. I felt her lean over me, felt her breath on my face. "Sleep well, sister," she whispered. "When you wake, I'll be wearing your face. I'll be standing beside Damien. I'll be everything you should have been." Then there was nothing but silence and darkness, and the terrible awareness that I was trapped in my own body. The funeral was 2 days later. 2 days of lying in state, dressed in white silk, covered in moonflowers. I was aware of every moment. The servants who came to weep over my body, the nobles who paid their respects, Damien, who spent hours sitting beside me, holding my cold hand, crying until he had no tears left. "I can still feel you," he whispered once, when we were alone. "The mate bond is broken, but I can still feel an echo of you, like you're not completely gone." Am I going mad? I screamed inside my paralyzed body. "I'm here! I'm here!" But nothing came out. Nothing moved. Magnus came once. They let him say goodbye. He laid his massive head on my chest, right over my frozen heart, and whined, that soft, desperate sound he'd made when trying to warn me. Then he licked my face, his rough tongue warm against my cold skin, and I swear I felt wetness that wasn't from his tongue. He was crying again, crying for me. I wanted so badly to open my eyes, to show him I was still here, still alive, but I couldn't. The spell held me perfectly. The day of the funeral was gray and cold. I felt them lift me, carry me, heard the funeral bells tolling. The priestesses sang prayers to the moon goddess, asking her to guide my spirit to the sacred hunting grounds where all good wolves go when they die. But I wasn't going anywhere. I was right here, trapped. They placed me in the coffin. I felt the silk lining under my back, smelled the cedar wood. It was beautiful, I'm sure, carved with moon phases and wolf symbols, fit for a princess, fit for a tomb. I heard Damien's voice, broken and raw. "I love you. I'll love you until the last star dies. Wait for me in the next life, and I'll find you again." Then they closed the lid. The darkness was absolute, suffocating even before the lack of air became a problem. I could hear muffled sounds from outside, more prayers, more weeping. Then the first shovelful of dirt hit the coffin. The sound was hollow, final, thump, another shovelful, thump, and another, thump, thump, thump. The sound getting more muffled as the dirt piled higher. They were burying me. I screamed and screamed inside my head, but my body wouldn't respond. I was being buried alive, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The sounds grew fainter. The prayers faded. Eventually, there was just the distant sound of dirt being shoveled, and then that stopped too. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. I was 6 feet underground, in a coffin, in the dark, paralyzed but conscious. And then, after what might have been hours, or might have been days, I felt it. The spell beginning to wear off, sensation creeping back into my fingers, my toes, my lungs suddenly expanding, drawing in air that was already stale and thin. I could move again. I opened my eyes to pure darkness, and I started to scream. The first thing I felt when the spell wore off was cold, bone-deep seeping cold that made my teeth chatter and my muscles lock. Then came the darkness. Not the darkness of a room at night, but absolute darkness, the kind that presses against your eyeballs like a physical weight. Then came the smell, cedar wood and silk, and something else, something organic and wrong. Decomposition, death, the smell of a grave. Memory crashed back. Luna's whisper, the poison, the funeral. They'd buried me. I tried to scream, but my throat was so dry that only a wheeze came out. I tried to move, and my hand hit something solid inches above my face. Wood. The coffin lid. I was in a coffin. Underground. Buried. The panic that seized me then was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. It was primal, animal, the kind of terror that strips away everything human and leaves only the desperate need to escape. I screamed, a raw sound that scraped my throat bloody. I pounded on the coffin lid with both fists, the impact jarring my bones. The wood was solid, unyielding. It didn't even crack. "Help!" I screamed. "Help me! I'm alive! I'm alive!" Nothing. No response. Just my own voice echoing back at me in that tiny space. I started clawing at the wood above my face. My fingernails caught in the grain, bending back, breaking. Pain lanced through my fingertips, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I scratched and tore and clawed until my fingers were slick with blood, until I could feel splinters embedding themselves under what was left of my nails. The lid didn't budge. I don't know how long I screamed and clawed. Time lost all meaning in that darkness. There was only terror and pain and the growing realization that no one could hear me. I was 6 feet under the earth. My screams couldn't penetrate that much dirt and stone. I was going to die down here. For real this time. The air was already starting to feel thin. Each breath came a little harder than the last. The coffin was sealed tight, meant to keep the dead in and the elements out. But I wasn't dead. I was very much alive, and I was using up oxygen with every panicked breath. I forced myself to stop screaming, to lie still, to conserve air. My heart was hammering so hard it hurt, my breath coming in gasps. I pressed my bloody hands against the coffin lid and tried to think. There had to be a way out. There had to be, but there wasn't. I was trapped in a box, buried under 6 feet of earth, and no one knew I was alive. Damien thought I was dead. My parents thought I was dead. Everyone thought I was dead except Luna, and she wanted me to die. Hours passed. I know because I counted my breaths, trying to slow them, trying to make the air last. 1 breath per 4 heartbeats. In through my nose, out through my mouth. Stay calm. Don't panic. Don't use up the oxygen. But it was running out anyway. I could feel it. Each breath brought less relief. My head was getting fuzzy. My limbs felt heavy. The cold was getting worse, seeping into my bones, making me want to curl up and sleep. Maybe sleep would be better. Maybe it wouldn't hurt if I just closed my eyes and let go. No. The word came from somewhere deep inside me, from the wolf spirit that lived in my blood. The part of me that was descended from the moon goddess herself, that carried the strength of 1,000 female ancestors who'd survived worse than this. No. I would not die in this box. I would not let Luna win. I started pounding on the coffin lid again. Not frantically this time, but rhythmically. Boom, boom, boom. A pattern. A signal. If anyone was near the grave, if anyone was paying attention, maybe they'd hear it. Maybe they'd think it was strange. Maybe. My arms ached. My broken fingers screamed with pain. The air was so thin now that black spots danced in my already dark vision, but I kept pounding. Boom. Boom, boom. Above ground, Magnus Nightshade was going insane. I didn't know it then. I wouldn't know until later, when Damien told me. But Magnus had refused to leave my grave. After the funeral, after everyone had left, after the gravediggers had finished their work and gone home, Magnus stayed. He lay on the freshly turned earth, his massive body stretched across my grave, and he whined. The guards tried to move him. He attacked. Not playfully, not with warning growls. He went for throats. 3 guards ended up in the infirmary with deep bites before they decided to leave him alone. "Let the beast mourn," they said. He'd leave eventually. But Magnus didn't leave. As the sun set and the moon rose, he started to dig. His claws were designed for it, long and curved and strong. He tore into the earth like it had personally offended him, dirt flying behind him in great arcs. The guards came back with nets and poles, trying to catch him, drag him away. He fought them off, never stopping his digging, dirt caking his white fur, brown and black. Damien came when he heard the commotion. He'd been in his chambers, drowning in grief, the shattered mate bond leaving him hollow and sick. But something made him drag himself out of bed, some instinct he couldn't name. He found Magnus 3 feet down into my grave, still digging, his paws bloody, his breath coming in harsh pants. "What are you doing?" Damien asked, dropping to his knees at the edge of the hole. "Magnus, she's gone. She's not coming back." Magnus stopped digging. He turned to look at Damien with those ancient amber eyes, and Damien said later that he'd never seen such intelligence, such desperate urgency, in an animal's face before. Magnus barked, not a normal bark, but something that sounded almost like words. Then he went back to digging, faster now, more frantic. "What are you trying to tell me?" Damien grabbed the wolf dog's collar, trying to pull him back. Magnus twisted in his grip and bit him. Not hard, not enough to draw blood, but enough to shock. Magnus had never bitten Damien before. Then Magnus howled, that same heartbroken sound he'd made when I died, but different now. There was urgency in it, demand. He howled, and then he looked at Damien and barked again, that almost word sound, and went back to digging. Something clicked in Damien's mind, some instinct deeper than logic. "You think she's alive," he said slowly. "That's impossible. The physicians confirmed she was dead." I felt the mate bond break. Magnus just kept digging. Damien stood there for a long moment, torn between grief-mad delusion and something that felt uncomfortably like hope. Then he made a decision. "Guards, get shovels. Dig." "My lord?" One of them stepped forward hesitantly. "The princess is at rest. We can't disturb." "That's an order." Damien's voice cracked like a whip. "Dig now." They dug. 6 guards with shovels working alongside Magnus with his claws. The pile of earth grew higher. They dug faster, more frantic, as the hole grew deeper. Inside my coffin, I was fading. The air was almost gone. I'd stopped pounding on the lid because I didn't have the strength anymore. My arms felt like lead. My chest burned with the effort of breathing. The black spots in my vision had merged into a solid curtain of darkness. I was dying. Again. For real this time. Luna had won. Then I heard it. A sound filtering down through the earth. Distant. Muffled but unmistakable. Scratching. Digging. Metal hitting dirt. Voices shouting. Someone was digging. Energy burst through me like lightning. I lifted my bloody hands and pounded on the coffin lid with everything I had left. "I'm here!" My voice was a ruined rasp. "I'm alive! I'm here!" Did they hear me? Could they hear me through all that earth? The digging sounds got closer. Louder. I could hear someone shouting orders. Could hear the thud of shovels hitting dirt faster and faster. Then metal hit wood. My coffin lid. They'd reached it. "Faster!" That was Damien's voice, hoarse and desperate. "She's down there. She's alive. I can feel it." I pounded on the lid with both fists. "Damien, I'm here! I'm alive!" More scraping sounds. They were clearing the dirt from the top of the coffin. Then I heard it. The sound of nails being pried from wood. They were opening it. Light exploded into my darkness as the coffin lid was torn open. Torchlight, impossibly bright after hours of absolute dark, seared my eyes. I tried to lift my head, to see, but I was too weak. Cold night air rushed in, beautiful and clean and full of oxygen. Faces appeared above me. Damien's face. His smoke-gray eyes were wild, disbelieving, streaming with tears. "Arya," he choked out. "Oh gods, Arya." He reached down and pulled me out of the coffin. I was filthy, covered in dirt and blood and the cedar dust from clawing at the lid. My dress was torn. My hair was tangled with grave dirt. My fingers were mangled and bleeding. But I was alive. The mate bond exploded back to life between us. That golden thread that had been severed suddenly snapped back into place. So intense it made us both gasp. I could feel him, feel his shock and relief and joy and guilt all tangled together. He could feel me, feel my terror and pain and desperate gratitude. He crushed me against his chest, his whole body shaking. "You're alive. You're alive. I felt you die. I felt the bond break. How?" "Luna." My voice was barely a whisper. It was Luna. She poisoned me. Not to kill me, but to make me seem dead. She wanted me to wake up down there. She wanted me to suffocate. Damien pulled back to stare at me, his face blank with shock. "Luna did this? She made a deal with a witch. 15 years of her life for a spell that would make me appear dead. She whispered it to me before I lost consciousness. She wanted me to wake up in my coffin and die slowly, knowing she'd stolen everything." Magnus appeared at the edge of the grave, his white fur stained brown with dirt, his paws bloody. He whined and tried to climb down to me. Damien lifted me up out of the grave, and the moment my feet touched solid ground, Magnus was there. He pressed his huge body against my legs, whining and licking my hands, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "You knew," I whispered, dropping to my knees and burying my face in his fur. "You tried to warn me. I'm so sorry I didn't listen. I'm so sorry." He licked my face, tasting the tears and grave dirt, making that happy whimpering sound dogs make when something they love comes home. I looked up at Damien. "Where's Luna now?" His face darkened. "At the castle. She's been there since the funeral, helping our parents plan the memorial services. She seemed devastated by your death. She's a liar and a murderer." I tried to stand and my legs buckled. Damien caught me before I fell. "We need to go back. Now. She's planning something else. I know it. This wasn't just about killing me. She wanted to steal everything. She said she'd be wearing my face." Damien's eyes widened with understanding. "The witch. If she could make you seem dead, she could change Luna's appearance," I finished. "Make her look like me." We rode back to the castle at a full gallop, Magnus running alongside us. I clung to Damien's back, weak and shaking, but alive. The mate bond thrummed between us, stronger now, like it had been tempered by my death and resurrection into something unbreakable. It was nearly midnight when we reached the castle. The windows were dark except for a few burning in the great hall. We rode straight through the gates, past shocked guards who stared at me like they were seeing a ghost. Maybe they were. Damien dismounted and pulled me down after him. I was filthy, covered in dirt, my dress in tatters, my hair a wild tangle. But I held my head high as we walked through the castle corridors. Servants screamed when they saw me. Some fainted, others ran ahead, no doubt spreading word that the dead princess had returned. We reached the great hall. The doors were closed, but I could hear voices inside. My father's voice, raised in what sounded like an argument, and another voice, a woman's voice, my voice. I pushed open the doors. The hall fell silent. Every head turned toward me. My father stood at the high table, papers spread before him. My mother sat beside him, her face pale. The royal advisors were scattered throughout the room, and standing at the center of it all, dressed in one of my favorite gowns, wearing my sapphire necklace with my face and my hair and my voice, was Luna. She looked exactly like me. Not similar, not close. Exactly. The same blue eyes, the same high cheekbones, the same small scar on my right eyebrow from when I fell off a horse at age 7. Everything. The glamour was perfect. Luna wearing my face turned to look at me. For a moment, just a moment, I saw shock flash across her features. Then it was replaced by a smile, a pitying, concerned smile that made my blood boil. "Oh, you poor thing," she said in my voice, walking toward me with outstretched hands. "Guards. Someone found this woman wandering in the cemetery. She must have been sleeping rough and dug into one of the graves for shelter. She looks half mad." The guards started forward. I backed up against Damien, my heart racing. "I am Arya Celestine," I said, my ruined voice cracking. "And that woman is my sister Luna, wearing a stolen face." Luna laughed. It sounded exactly like my laugh. "Delusional, poor dear. Someone get her to the infirmary. She needs medical care." "I'm not delusional." I tried to move forward, but my legs were still weak. "She poisoned me. She made a deal with a witch to make me appear dead so she could bury me alive and steal my identity." "That's quite an imagination," Luna said, still in that pitying tone. "Guards, please, help this woman." 2 guards approached me. Damien stepped between us and them. "Stop." Everyone froze. Damien's voice carried the weight of an Alfa command, something that made even the strongest-willed feel compelled to obey. "You will not touch her," he said quietly. His eyes were on Luna, studying her. Then they moved to me, taking in my dirt-covered face, my torn dress, my bloody fingers. One of these women is my mate. One of them is an imposter. I will determine which is which. Luna's smile faltered for just a second. Damien, it's me. You're Arya. I know I look like I've been crying, but be quiet. He walked toward Luna slowly. She stood her ground, that confident smile back in place. He stopped in front of her and inhaled deeply, scenting. I saw confusion cross his face. She smelled like me. The glamour had changed everything, even her scent. Luna reached out and touched his arm. See? You know it's me. But Damien flinched back from her touch. No, he said slowly. No, you smell like Arya, but you feel wrong. He turned and walked to me. I stood there, filthy and shaking, probably looking like a grave-risen corpse. He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs gentle on my dirt-smudged cheeks. Then he leaned in and inhaled. I saw the moment he knew, the moment the mate bond, that connection forged by the moon goddess herself, recognized me despite the dirt and blood and trauma. His eyes widened, his breath caught. It's you, he whispered. I can feel you. The bond. It's you. He kissed me. Right there in front of everyone. He kissed me like a man who'd lost everything and just found it again. The mate bond blazed between us, golden and fierce and undeniable. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. He turned to Luna, who'd gone very pale under her stolen face. That, he said, pointing at me, is Arya Celestine, my mate, my future queen. He looked at Luna. And you, whoever you are going to explain how you're wearing her face. The court demanded a trial. Of course they did. You can't have two women claiming to be the crown princess without determining which one is telling the truth. My father called for an emergency council session at dawn. Every noble in the castle was summoned. The great hall filled with people whispering and staring as Damien led me to stand before the high table. I was still filthy. Someone had offered me clean clothes, a chance to bathe, but I'd refused. Let them see what Luna had done to me. Let them see the dirt from my grave, the blood on my broken fingers, the terror still lingering in my eyes. This was the truth of what my sister had tried to do. Luna stood across from me, perfectly composed in my sapphire gown, wearing my face like it had always belonged to her. She looked every inch a grieving princess, bravely carrying on after her sister's death. I looked like a mad woman who'd crawled out of the earth. My father sat at the head table, his face gray and drawn. He'd aged 10 years overnight. My mother wouldn't even look at me, her hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. They didn't know which daughter to believe. Part of me understood. The other part, the part that had clawed at a coffin lid until my fingernails broke, wanted to scream at them for not knowing me instantly. This is unprecedented, Lord Chancellor Aldrich said, standing to address the court. 2 women, both claiming to be Princess Arya Celestine. One must be an imposter. We must determine the truth through rigorous testing. Luna stepped forward, her voice steady and sure. My voice. I welcome any test. I am Arya Celestine, daughter of King Theron and Queen Morgana. I was born in this castle 28 years ago. I have nothing to hide. All eyes turned to me. I stood there shaking, Damien's hand warm on the small of my back, the only thing keeping me upright. I am Arya, I said, but my voice was hoarse from screaming in the coffin, ruined and raw. That woman is my sister Luna, wearing a stolen face through dark magic. The court erupted in whispers. Luna turned to me with a pitying expression that made me want to claw her eyes out. I understand you're confused, she said gently. Perhaps you hit your head, or suffered some trauma that's made you believe this delusion. But I am not your sister. I am Arya Celestine, and you are a stranger who bears a passing resemblance to me. I bore more than a passing resemblance, I spat. I bore your exact face until 3 days ago, when you poisoned me and buried me alive. Your Majesty, Luna turned to my father, her eyes filling with tears, perfect calculated tears. This is clearly a disturbed woman who needs help, not a trial. I petition that we send her to the healers. No, Damien's voice cut through the noise. There will be a trial. My mate was murdered and buried. She clawed her way back from the grave. We will hear her testimony. Luna's jaw tightened, but she inclined her head graciously. Of course, if it will put this matter to rest and help this poor woman, I will submit to any test. And that's when I realized I was in trouble, because Luna wasn't afraid of tests. She'd been planning this for 3 months. She'd studied every detail of my life, memorized every scar, every memory, every secret. The glamour the witch had given her was perfect, down to the smallest detail. "First test," Lord Aldrich announced. "Childhood memories. Tell us about your 8th birthday celebration." Luna answered immediately, her voice warm with false nostalgia. "It was the year of the great snow. The castle was buried under 6 feet of ice, and we had to celebrate inside. Father had the kitchens make a cake shaped like a castle, but the servants dropped it on the way to the great hall. Mother cried, but I laughed. We ate cake off the floor with our fingers while Father pretended to be scandalized." The court murmured approvingly. It was exactly right. Every detail perfect. My father nodded slowly. "That is correct." Luna smiled at me. "Your turn." I recited the same memory, word for word, because it was my memory, my birthday, my father's face when I'd laughed instead of crying, but my voice was destroyed, my appearance wild, and I could see doubt in the noble's eyes. "Second test," Aldrich said. "The princess has a distinctive birthmark. Where is it located?" "Left shoulder blade," Luna said smoothly, turning to show them. She pulled down the neckline of the gown just enough to reveal the small crescent-shaped mark, shaped like a new moon. "I've had it since birth." My chest tightened. That was my birthmark, on my body, but the glamour had copied it perfectly onto hers. "She's lying," I said desperately. "That's my mark. She stole it along with everything else." "Can you prove you have the same mark?" Aldrich asked. I pulled at my torn, dirt-stained dress, trying to show my shoulder, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely move the fabric. Damien helped me, gently pulling the dress down to reveal my shoulder blade. The crescent was there, exactly the same as Luna's. The court erupted. "They both have it!" someone shouted. "How is that possible?" "Magic," Luna said softly. "Dark magic that could copy my appearance. This woman must have consulted a witch to steal my face and my birthmark." "I didn't steal anything," my voice cracked. "You're the one who went to the witch. You traded 15 years of your life for a glamour spell." "Prove it," Luna said calmly. I couldn't. I had no proof, just my word against hers, and she looked like a princess, while I looked like something that had crawled from a grave. The questions continued. Luna answered every single one perfectly. She knew the name of my childhood tutor. She knew which flowers I preferred in the garden. She knew the exact wording of a private conversation I'd had with my mother about my first bleeding. Every detail, every memory, every secret. She'd studied me like a scholar studies ancient texts, memorizing everything until she could become me. I answered the same questions, but my voice was weak, my appearance against me. The nobles kept glancing between us, doubt growing in their eyes. The clean, composed princess, or the dirty, desperate woman who'd appeared from a cemetery? Which would you believe? "If she is truly the princess," Lord Aldrich said slowly, "surely Magnus Nightshade would recognize her. The wolf dog has guarded the royal family for 3 generations. He knows the princess's scent better than anyone." Luna's eyes gleamed with triumph. An excellent test. Magnus had been lying at Damien's feet throughout the trial. Now he stood, his massive white body tense, his amber eyes fixed on Luna with an intensity that should have warned everyone. He padded forward slowly, stopping between us. Luna held out her hand to him, smiling. "Come here, boy. You know me." Magnus looked at her extended hand. Then he looked at her face, the face that looked exactly like mine. For a terrible moment, I thought the glamour had fooled even him. Then he turned away from her and walked to me. He pressed his huge head against my hip, nearly knocking me over, and made that soft whining sound of greeting he'd always made when I came home. His tail wagged slowly, deliberately. He knew. He'd always known. Relief crashed through me so powerfully I almost collapsed. I buried my hands in his fur, feeling his solid warmth, his absolute certainty. "There," I said to the court. "Magnus knows who I am. He's an animal," Luna said dismissively. Perhaps the scent of grave dirt confused him. "Surely we cannot base the fate of the kingdom on a dog's confusion." The nobles murmured in agreement. Several nodded. Magnus was a sacred guardian, yes, but he was still just an animal. He could be wrong. I was losing. I could see it in their faces. Luna had been too thorough, too careful. She'd thought of everything. The perfect glamour, the memorized memories, the stolen birthmark. She'd even thought to discredit Magnus's recognition of me. Damien hadn't spoken during the entire trial. He'd just stood beside me, his hand on my back, watching, listening. But now I felt something shift in him. The mate bond, which had been thrumming steadily between us, suddenly blazed brighter. He was feeling it too. The pull, the certainty that I was his mate, regardless of what his eyes saw or what the court believed. I turned to look at him. His smoke-gray eyes were fixed on Luna, studying her with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. Then his eyes moved to me, to my dirt-covered face, my bloody hands, my wild appearance. The mate bond pulsed, gold and warm and absolutely certain. I stopped trying to convince the court. What was the point? They wanted proof I couldn't give them. They wanted evidence that Luna had destroyed or stolen. But there was one thing she couldn't steal. One thing the glamour couldn't replicate. I ignored the court, ignored Luna, ignored my parents and the nobles and everyone watching. I walked to Damien, my legs still weak but my purpose clear. "You know me," I said quietly, just for him. "Your body knows me. Your wolf knows me. Forget what your eyes see. Forget what the court says. Feel the mate bond. Where is it pulling you?" I reached out and touched his hand. The moment my fingers made contact with his skin, the mate bond exploded. It was like touching a live wire, electricity arcing between us so powerfully that Damien gasped. The golden thread that connected our souls blazed bright enough that I could almost see it, stretching between our hearts, unbreakable and undeniable. "Arya," he breathed. Not a question. A certainty. He turned to Luna. She was already moving toward him, her hand outstretched, panic flickering across her stolen face. "Damien, it's me," she said urgently. "Your mate. Your Arya. You know me." Damien looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. Nothing happened. No spark. No recognition. No mate bond flaring to life. Just cold flesh touching flesh. Meaningless and empty. Luna's face went white. She tried to press closer. Tried to make him feel something. Anything. "You know me," she whispered desperately. "You chose me. The moon goddess bound us together. The moon goddess bound me to her." Damien pulled his hand away and pointed at me. "I felt the mate bond break when she died. I felt it resurrect when we pulled her from the grave. A glamour can change your face, your voice, your scent, but it cannot create a mate bond. It cannot forge a connection that the goddess herself wove into our souls before we were born." He walked back to me and took my face in his hands, his thumbs gentle on my dirt-smudged cheeks. "This is Arya Celestine. This is my mate, and I don't care what she looks like or sounds like or how much dirt covers her. I would know her in the darkest night, in the depths of death itself. She is mine, and I am hers, and no magic in this world can change that." He kissed me, right there in front of the entire court, with my father shouting and the nobles gasping, and Luna standing frozen in horror. The mate bond sang between us, golden and fierce and completely, undeniably real. When Damien pulled back, his eyes were blazing. He turned to face the court. "That woman," he pointed at Luna, "is an imposter. I don't know how she's wearing Arya's face, but she is not my mate." Luna opened her mouth to protest, to spin another lie, when the doors to the great hall exploded open. The witch stood in the doorway. She was ancient and withered, her skin gray like old parchment, her eyes sunken deep in their sockets. She looked half dead already, the price of dark magic consuming her from the inside out. But there was a terrible vitality in those eyes, a cruel intelligence that swept over the room and landed on Luna. "There you are," the witch rasped, her voice like dead leaves scraping across stone. "I came to collect what you owe me." The court froze. Luna backed away, shaking her head. "I don't know this woman." "Liar." The witch shuffled into the hall, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff. "You came to me 3 months ago, offered me 15 years of your life in exchange for 2 spells. One to make your sister appear dead, one to let you steal her face after her burial." The court erupted. Nobles shouted in shock and horror. My father rose from his seat, his face pale. "What is the meaning of this?" "Oh, it was quite clever, really." The witch grinned, showing blackened teeth. The younger princess was so jealous of the older, so eaten alive with envy that she was willing to trade 15 years of her own life just to steal a few weeks as the crown princess. She wanted her sister to wake up in her coffin, wanted her to die slowly in the dark, knowing she'd lost everything. "That's not true," Luna shouted, but her voice was shaking and her perfect composure was finally cracking. "You paid me in blood and years." The witch lifted her gnarled hand. "You gave me 15 years of your youth, and I gave you the face you wanted so badly. But you didn't tell me it would be this entertaining to watch. I've been observing from the shadows, waiting to see how long your lies would hold." "Stop talking," Luna hissed. You have no proof. Don't I? The witch's eyes gleamed. The glamour is mine. It answers to me, and I think I'm done watching this farce. She snapped her fingers. The air in the great hall shimmered. Luna gasped, her hands flying to her face as the glamour began to dissolve. It happened slowly, horribly, like watching a painting melt in the rain. My features slid away from her like oil on water, revealing what lay beneath. Luna, but not the Luna I remembered. This Luna was older, haggard, worn. The 15 years she'd traded had aged her in ways that went beyond simple time. Her face was gaunt, her skin sallow and loose. Her eyes were sunken, ringed with dark circles. Her hair was brittle and streaked with gray. She looked like she'd lived 30 years in 3 months. The court screamed. My mother fainted, caught by a servant before she hit the floor. My father stared at Luna, at what his younger daughter had become, with horror etched into every line of his face. No, Luna whispered, touching her real face with shaking hands. No, no, no. Give it back. Give me back her face. The payment is complete, the witch said coldly. You got what you paid for. Not my fault you weren't satisfied with the results. Luna spun to face me, and for the first time, I saw her without any masks. No pretty lies, no careful composure, just raw, festering hatred. You, she snarled. Everything was always yours. The crown, the respect, father's approval, the gladiator's love, everything. And I got nothing but scraps. You could have had your own life, I said quietly. Your own achievements, your own love. But you were so obsessed with stealing mine that you destroyed yourself. I hate you. Tears streamed down her ravaged face. I've hated you since we were children. You were always the perfect one, the responsible one, the one everyone loved. And I was just the pretty decoration, the spare princess. Nothing I did was ever good enough because you'd already done it better. Something in my chest tightened. Not sympathy, exactly, but a terrible understanding. So you tried to become me. Paid 15 years of your life for a chance to wear my face, take my mate, rule my kingdom. And I almost succeeded, she laughed, a broken sound. If that wolf dog hadn't dug up your grave, if you died down there like you were supposed to, I would have won. But the mate bond, I said softly. Even if I died, Damien would have known you weren't me the moment you touched him. The glamour could steal my face, but it couldn't forge the connection the moon goddess created between us. You could never have him, Luna. Not truly, because destiny doesn't work like that. She screamed then, a raw sound of rage and grief, and lunged at me. Guards grabbed her before she could reach me, dragging her back as she fought and screamed and cursed. You ruined my life, she shrieked. I hope you're happy. I hope you enjoy your perfect life with your perfect mate while I rot. My father finally found his voice. Take her to the tower, he said hoarsely. She will be tried for attempted murder, dark magic, and treason. Luna fought the guards every step as they dragged her away, still screaming, still cursing my name. The witch watched with amusement, then turned to shuffle back out of the hall. Wait, I called after her. Why did you come? Why expose her now? The witch turned, that cruel smile still on her face. Because watching powerful people destroy themselves is far more entertaining than letting them succeed. Your sister's suffering was payment enough. And besides, she tapped her staff on the floor, I wanted my due, 15 years of life, paid in advance. But she tried to cheat me by losing those years anyway through her own stupidity. So I took what was owed directly from her aging flesh. We're even now. Then she was gone, leaving only the faint smell of grave dirt and bitter herbs. The court was in chaos. Nobles shouted questions. Servants ran to tend to my mother, who was still unconscious. My father sat heavily in his chair, his head in his hands, looking like a man who'd aged a decade in an hour. I walked to the high table. Damien stayed at my side, his hand never leaving my back. Magnus pressed against my other side, a solid wall of loyal warmth. Father, I said quietly. He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Arya, my daughter, I'm so sorry. I should have known, should have seen. I failed you. Part of me wanted to rage at him, to scream that yes, he'd failed me, that he'd always favored Luna, always given her everything while expecting me to be perfect. But I was so tired. Tired of anger, tired of pain, tired of family tearing itself apart. Luna was always your favorite, I said, and I kept my voice steady. The beautiful one, the charming one. You indulged her every whim while I was expected to be responsible, dutiful, perfect. Maybe if you'd loved us equally, if you taught her that she had value beyond being pretty and charming, none of this would have happened. My father flinched like I'd struck him. You're right, he whispered. We created the monster she became. By favoring her, by never demanding she be anything more than decorative, we taught her that her only value was in comparison to you, and we taught you that love had to be earned through perfection. He reached for my hand, then stopped when he saw the blood and dirt. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am deeply, profoundly sorry. I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd failed me, who'd just watched one daughter try to murder the other, and I made a choice. I forgive you, I said, not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let hatred poison me the way it poisoned Luna. But things will be different now. I am not going to chase your approval anymore. I am going to be the queen this kingdom needs, whether you approve of my methods or not. He nodded slowly. I understand. And I'm proud of you, Arya. I should have said that more often. The words landed in my chest, warm and painful at the same time. Too little, too late, but still something. I turned to the court. Every noble in the kingdom was staring at me, this dirt-covered, grave-risen princess who'd just exposed her sister's treachery. I probably looked insane, definitely looked unkempt, but I held my head high. I am Arya Celestine, I said, and my ruined voice carried through the silent hall. Crown princess of this realm. I was poisoned by my sister, buried alive, and I clawed my way back from the grave. I have stared into darkness and chosen to live, and I will be your queen. The hall erupted in cheers. Maybe it was relief, maybe it was shock, maybe it was just the sheer drama of it all. But they cheered, and I let them, and I felt something settle inside me, something stronger than before. A week later, Damien and I married. It wasn't the grand celebration we'd originally planned. No feast for hundreds, no week-long festivities. Just a simple ceremony in the Moon Temple, with my parents, a handful of close friends, and Magnus lying at my feet throughout the entire thing. I wore a simple white dress, not the elaborate gown that was still hanging in my chambers. Damien wore his gladiator leathers, refusing the noble finery the tailors kept trying to force on him. We stood before the moon priestess as she blessed our union, and when she asked if we accepted the mate bond the goddess had woven for us, we answered together. We do. Then came the marking, the moment that would complete the mate bond forever, making it unbreakable even by death. Damien pulled me close, his hands gentle on my shoulders. I tilted my head, exposing my throat, my pulse jumping under my skin. I love you, he whispered against my neck. In this life, and every life after, you are mine, and I am yours. Then he bit down. The pain was sharp and intense, but it lasted only a moment. Then the mate bond blazed to life between us, golden and fierce and permanent. I felt it lock into place, felt our souls weave together until I couldn't tell where I ended, and he began. His emotions became mine became his strength flowed into me, mine into him. When he pulled back, his lips were stained with my blood. The bite mark on my neck would scar into a crescent shape, the mark of a claimed mate, visible to everyone. I was his now, and he was mine. I reached up and bit him back. Not hard enough to break the skin, but enough to make him laugh. You're mine too, I whispered. Don't forget it. Never, he promised. That night, we celebrated quietly in our chambers. No crowds, no obligations, just us, and Magnus sleeping on a cushion by the fire, snoring softly. I stood at the window looking out at the cemetery where I'd been buried. I could see my grave from here, the turned earth dark against the grass. They'd filled it in after exhuming me, but there was still a depression where the ground had settled. Do you want to move the grave? Damien asked, coming to stand behind me. We could relocate it somewhere you don't have to see it every day. No. I leaned back against his chest, feeling his arms wrap around me. I want to see it. I want to remember that I died and came back, that I survived my sister's worst cruelty, that I'm stronger than anyone, including me, ever knew. Luna was in the tower, awaiting trial. She'd be executed eventually, I knew. High treason carried only one punishment. Part of me grieved for the sister she could have been, if jealousy hadn't eaten her alive, but mostly I felt nothing. She'd made her choices. She'd have to live with the consequences, or die with them. I would govern, I would rule, and I would be the queen my kingdom needed. not the perfect princess my parents had tried to create. I'd learned too much in that coffin, in the darkness, about the price of perfection and the value of survival. Magnus woke from his nap and padded over to us, pressing his head against my leg. I ran my fingers through his silver fur, feeling the solid warmth of him. "Good boy," I whispered. "You saved me. You never gave up." He looked up at me with those ancient amber eyes and licked my hand. In his own way, he understood. He'd been trying to warn me all along, fighting desperately to make me see the danger. And when I'd died anyway, he'd refused to let me stay dead. "He sleeps in here from now on," I told Damien. "By our bed. Always. I wouldn't have it any other way." Damien agreed. "He's Pack. Family." That night, I slept deeply for the first time since being buried. No nightmares, no panic. Just peaceful rest with my mate's arms around me, and Magnus's gentle snoring a comforting presence in the darkness. They'd buried me alive, thinking I'd die in terror and despair. But I'd clawed my way back from death itself. I'd survived my sister's betrayal, survived the grave, survived my own fear. I was Arya Celestine, daughter of the moon goddess, future queen, Damien's mate, and I was unbreakable.